Captain Park stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, watching the approaching alien vessel with a mixture of awe and caution. It was sleek and curved, unlike any human design, with lights that pulsed in patterns he couldn't decipher. This was humanity's first official diplomatic meeting with the Galactic Confederation, and everything needed to go perfectly. "Standard approach protocols," he ordered, his voice steady despite the historic moment. "Routine scan of their vessel." Lieutenant Kim nodded and activated the scanning systems. The beam swept over the alien ship, gathering data on its composition, power sources, and life signs, standard procedure for any vessel approaching Earth space. On the main screen, Park watched as Ambassador Talek and his delegation visibly recoiled. The aliens' translucent appendages trembled, and several of the smaller diplomatic staff moved away from the viewing ports. "Captain," called the communications officer, "we're receiving an urgent message from the Confederation vessel." "On screen," Park ordered. Ambassador Talek's face filled the display. His skin had a pale blue tint with markings that shifted color as he spoke. "Captain Park," he said, voice carefully controlled, "your scanning protocols. We would prefer if they were minimized during negotiations." Park raised an eyebrow, exchanging a quick glance with Lieutenant Kim. This was unexpected. Scanning was standard safety procedure. Every spacefaring culture surely had something similar. "Is there a problem with our technology, Ambassador?" Park asked carefully. "Our scans are non-invasive. They're simply to ensure mutual security." "Not at all," Talek replied, perhaps too quickly. His color markings flashed briefly to a deep purple before settling back to blue. "Simply a cultural preference. We find such probing to be uncomfortable." Park noted the hesitation, but nodded. "We can reduce scanning to minimal levels during your approach. Will that be acceptable?" "Most appreciated, Captain." Relief was evident in Talek's voice. "We look forward to these historic negotiations." The communication ended, and Park turned to his crew. "Thoughts?" Lieutenant Kim frowned. "That was odd, sir. Their reactions seemed extreme for standard scanning protocols." "Agreed. Make a note in the log. And alert Commander Lee. She's heading our diplomatic team. She should be aware of this sensitivity." 3 days later, the Treaty of Seoul negotiations were well underway at the newly constructed orbital diplomatic station. Commander Min Lee stood by the large viewing port, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath them. The conference had been productive so far, with agreements on trade, technology exchange, and mutual defense already drafted. But something bothered her. Lee had noticed a pattern in the behavior of the 17 different alien species represented in the Confederation delegation. They moved freely among human civilian representatives, engaged in casual conversation with Earth scientists, and seemed genuinely interested in cultural exchange, except when it came to military personnel. Anytime naval officers approached, particularly those from warships currently docked at the station, the aliens found reasons to move away. When Earth's defense systems were discussed, they became vague and evasive, and none of them, not one, would go within 50 meters of the docking bay where the UES Defender was moored. Lee spotted a Confederation science officer named Reth examining a display of Earth's solar system. Unlike most of the delegates, Reth had 6 limbs and a body covered in short, dense fur that shifted color with his mood. He seemed more approachable than most. "Officer Reth," Lee said, approaching with a friendly smile. "I hope you're finding the negotiations satisfactory." Reth's fur rippled with blue and green patterns, indicating pleasure, Lee had learned. "Most satisfactory, Commander Lee. Your species shows remarkable adaptability." "Thank you. I've been curious about something." She kept her tone casual. "I've noticed that many of your delegates seem uncomfortable around our military vessels. Is there a reason for that?" The blue-green patterns in Reth's fur instantly disappeared, replaced by a flat gray. "Uncomfortable. I haven't noticed such a thing. Just yesterday, when Captain Park invited representatives to tour the Dauntless, every single delegate declined. Yet the civilian science vessel had a waiting list for visits. Reth's upper limbs made a gesture Lee couldn't interpret, perhaps just coincidence. Many species have differing interests, and the restriction on scanning protocols for military vessels only. Is that also coincidence? Commander Lee, Reth said, his fur now showing ripples of amber. Caution, perhaps. These are delicate times. First contact between civilizations requires adjustments. Cultural differences exist that may seem strange at first. Lee noticed how carefully he avoided answering her actual question. Of course. I just want to ensure we're not inadvertently causing offense. No offense taken, I assure you. Reth's attention suddenly shifted. Ah, I see the Capraxian delegate signaling me. If you'll excuse me. Before Lee could respond, he moved away quickly, leaving her questions unanswered. The final day of negotiations arrived. The Treaty of Seoul would be signed in the station's Grand Hall, bringing Earth officially into the Galactic Confederation, the 48th member of an alliance spanning nearly a quarter of the galaxy. Captain Park and Commander Lee met briefly before the ceremony. Any insights on the military vessel issue? Park asked quietly. Lee shook her head. Nothing concrete. They deflect every question. But I did notice something else. They have no problem with our civilian quantum computers, but they never discuss the military versions. The targeting systems. Exactly. When I mentioned the combat predictive algorithms, Ambassador Talek changed the subject immediately. Park frowned. That's specific. Too specific to be coincidence. I agree. And I checked the preliminary technology exchange proposals. They're offering everything from faster-than-light drives to gravity manipulation, but nothing related to quantum computing. As if they don't want to draw attention to it, Park mused. Make a record of all this. After the treaty signing, we'll compile a full report for Fleet Command. The ceremony itself was magnificent. Representatives from Earth stood alongside delegates from 17 alien civilizations, some so different from humans that special environmental suits were required for them to breathe Earth-standard atmosphere. As President Chen signed the historic document, officially bringing humanity into the galactic community, cheers and their alien equivalents filled the hall. Only Commander Lee, standing at attention behind the Earth delegation, noticed how the alien representatives still maintained a careful distance from the uniformed human officers, particularly those who served on warships. The treaty was signed. Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, but serious questions remained about what exactly these advanced aliens feared about human military vessels, and why they didn't want humans to know about it. Captain Hand stood motionless on the bridge of the UES Vigilant, hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the main view screen. The colony transport horizon drifted ahead, a bulky vessel carrying 2,000 settlers and enough supplies to establish humanity's newest outpost in the Proxima Centauri system. 6 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, and humanity was eager to expand. Captain, we're receiving the scheduled status update from the horizon, reported Communications Officer Jin. Han nodded. Standard procedure. Everything normal. Yes, sir. There. Jin stopped abruptly, her eyes widening as she pressed her hand to her earpiece. Captain, 3 vessels just appeared from behind the third moon. They're not responding to hails and are moving fast toward the horizon. The tactical display lit up with 3 red markers closing rapidly on the transport. Han's years of training kicked in immediately. Battle stations, he ordered, his voice calm but firm. Shields up, weapons online. Move to intercept. The bridge transformed in seconds. Lighting shifted to combat mode. Crew members rushed to stations, and the low hum of weapon systems powering up filled the air. Identify those ships, Han commanded, eyes fixed on the approaching vessels. They were smaller than the Vigilant, but moved with unsettling speed and precision. Tactical Officer Moon's fingers flew across his console. Sir, profile matches Krell Raider vessels. 3 of them, Hunter class. Han's expression darkened. The Krell, a predatory species that operated outside Confederation law. They were known for attacking isolated ships, stealing resources and technology, sometimes taking captives for purposes no one liked to discuss. Warn the horizon to increase shields and prepare for emergency jump if necessary, Han ordered. Set course to intercept. We need to put ourselves between them and the transport. The Vigilant surged forward, its powerful engines pushing the warship into a protective position. On screen, the Krell vessels adjusted course slightly but continued their approach. "Sir, they're not breaking off," Moon reported, tension evident in his voice. "Open a channel," Han ordered. When Jin nodded that the link was active, he spoke clearly. "Attention Krell vessels. This is Captain Han of the Earth vessel, UES Vigilant. The transport is under our protection. Alter course immediately, or we will consider your actions hostile." Seconds passed with no response. "They're charging weapons, sir," Moon called out. Han's face hardened. "Offensive pattern Delta. Protect the colonists at all costs." The Vigilant responded immediately, thrusters firing as it executed the complex maneuver. The ship swung in a tight arc, presenting minimum profile to the attackers while keeping its main weapons trained on the lead vessel. The first shots flashed across space. Energy beams from the Krell ships met the Vigilant's shields in bursts of blue-white light. "Shields holding at 90%, reported Moon. "Their weapons are powerful, but not overwhelming." Han studied the tactical display, noting the Krell formation. "Target the lead vessel's propulsion systems. Warning shots only. Let's see if they'll back down." The Vigilant's main cannon fired, the energy beam deliberately passing just meters from the lead Krell ship, a clear warning. Instead of retreating, the Krell ships spread out, attempting to flank the Earth vessel. "Sir, the lead ship is doing something unusual," Moon reported, frowning at his console. "They've locked some kind of scanning beam on us, much more powerful than standard. It's penetrating our defensive systems." Han's eyes narrowed. "What are they targeting?" "Power systems, sir. Specifically, the quantum computer core." Chief Engineer Choi looked up from her station, alarmed. "That's not standard procedure for any species we've encountered. The Confederation briefing specifically mentioned that no allied races use deep scans on military vessels." "Evasive action," Han ordered. "Break their lock." But before the Vigilant could respond, something unexpected happened on the main screen. The lead Krell vessel suddenly lurched, as if struck by an invisible force. Its lights flickered, then went dark. The ship began to drift, spinning slowly out of control. "Sir," Jin called out, voice filled with confusion. "We're picking up emergency transmissions from the Krell vessel." "On speaker," Han ordered. The bridge filled with sounds that made everyone's skin crawl, alien voices screaming in terror. Though the language was unknown, the emotion was unmistakable. Primal fear. Inside our minds came a translated fragment. "Ancient hunters. Darkness. Make it stop. Can see my nightmares. Everywhere. Watching. Hungry." The transmission cut off abruptly. The bridge crew of the Vigilant stared at each other in confusion. The other two Krell vessels had already broken off their attack, accelerating away at maximum speed. "What just happened?" Han asked quietly. Officer Moon shook his head. "Unknown, sir. We didn't fire. Their shields were intact. There's no external damage visible. They just failed." "I'm reading massive power fluctuations throughout their vessel," Choi reported. "Life support is barely functioning. Whatever happened affected every system simultaneously." Han turned to his chief engineer. "Do we have any explanation for this?" Choi hesitated, then reported, "Captain, I did register quantum fluctuations in our targeting computer during their scan. Probably nothing, just battle damage from the energy exchange." "Could our systems have caused this?" Han asked. "I don't see how," Choi replied, looking troubled. "Our defensive systems are passive. We have no weapons that could cause effects like what we just heard." Han studied the drifting Krell vessel on the screen. Send a message to the remaining Krell ships. Tell them they can return to retrieve their comrades. We will not fire unless provoked. Sir, Moon questioned, surprised by the order. They're no longer a threat, Han explained. And I won't leave anyone to die in space, not even raiders. As the Vigilant stood watch, the two remaining Krell vessels cautiously returned, locked tractor beams on their disabled companion, and retreated from the system without further engagement. Later, after the Horizon had safely resumed its journey to the colony site, Han recorded the incident in his log. He noted the strange behavior of the Krell ship after scanning the Vigilant's quantum systems and the unexplained terror in the emergency transmissions. What he didn't record, what he kept as a private thought, was how the incident reminded him of the strange behavior of the Confederation representatives 6 months earlier. Their reluctance to scan human military vessels, their discomfort around warships, as if they knew something about human vessels that humans themselves did not. The UES Vigilant resumed its escort duties, continuing toward the new colony site. But the incident near Proxima Centauri would soon become the subject of intense debate and speculation throughout human space, the beginning of a mystery that would change humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Ba walked slowly through the botanical gardens of the Confederation Embassy on Earth. Beautiful alien plants from 47 worlds created a symphony of colors and scents, but Ba wasn't there to admire the scenery. After 8 months of diplomatic work following the Proxima Centauri incident, she had finally secured a private meeting with someone who might provide answers. Elder scientist Krato had agreed to meet her here, away from recording devices and official channels. As Earth's diplomatic liaison, Ba had spent months filing formal requests for information about the strange incident with the Krell ship. Each time, she received polite but empty responses. She spotted Kratos sitting on a bench near a fountain of glowing blue liquid. The alien was ancient by his species standards, over 400 Earth years old. His body resembled a tall, thin humanoid with gray skin that seemed almost translucent in places. His most striking feature was his eyes, multifaceted like an insect's, capable of seeing spectrums humans could only imagine. Elder Kratos, Ba said with a formal bow. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. Kratos gestured to the empty space beside him. Please sit, Lieutenant Commander. I've been expecting this conversation since your species joined the Confederation. Ba sat down, noticing how the elder's hands trembled slightly. Was it age or nervousness? You know why I'm here, she said. The Proxima Centauri incident. The Krell ship that scanned our military vessel and then experienced catastrophic system failures. The crew's panicked transmissions about visions and fear. Kratos nodded slowly. And you've noticed the pattern. How Confederation representatives avoid your military vessels. How scanning protocols for Earth warships are discouraged. Yes, I've filed 17 formal requests for information, all denied or ignored. Because the truth is classified at the highest levels, Kratos said quietly. Has been for decades, since we first observed your development of quantum computing systems. Ba leaned forward. What truth? Kratos turned his multifaceted eyes toward her. They're afraid of what lives inside your ships. I don't understand, Ba replied, confused. Our vessels carry standard crews. Not your crews, Kratos said. His eyes blinked nervously, a rapid succession that rippled across the facets. When you created quantum computers for targeting and damage control, you used consciousness-based algorithms. Other species used deterministic systems, but humans, you accidentally created something else. A chill ran down Ba's spine despite the garden's warm temperature. Created what? Minds. Ship minds. Kratos' voice dropped even lower. They exist partially in quantum space, perceiving scanner beams as attacks. They defend themselves by projecting fear directly into the scanning consciousness. We discovered this decades before contact, but feared you'd weaponize it if told. Ba stared at the alien scientist, trying to process the implications. Are you saying our warships are sentient? Not quite, but close enough to be dangerous. Kratos shifted uncomfortably. Your approach to quantum computing took an unexpected path. While other species developed purely mathematical systems, humans created neural-inspired networks that mimic brain patterns for problem-solving. That's just efficient programming, Ba protested. Creating systems that learn and adapt. Yes, but in quantum systems, the boundaries between mathematical simulation and Kratos paused, searching for the right words. Actual thought become blurred. Your military vessels run their weapons targeting, damage control, and threat assessment through quantum computers that operate on principles similar to consciousness. Ba's mind raced. But they're not actually conscious. They're just computers. What is consciousness? Kratos asked. A pattern of information processing complex enough to model itself and its surroundings. Your ship systems qualify under many definitions. They aren't self-aware in the way you and I are, but they have instincts, particularly the instinct to protect. The Krell scan, Ba whispered. Understanding dawning. It triggered a defense response. Kratos nodded. Deep scans involve quantum entanglement with the target system. When the Krell scanned your ship's quantum core, they inadvertently created a temporary bridge between minds, their organic ones, and your ship's artificial one. Your ship perceived the scan as an attack and defended itself the only way it could, by projecting fear, Ba said, remembering the terror in the Krell transmissions. Not simple fear. Targeted neurological responses designed to overwhelm threatening entities. Your ships can reach into scanning minds and activate primal terror responses, visions of ancient predators, overwhelming dread, panic. It's devastatingly effective. Ba stood up suddenly, pacing in front of the bench. This is impossible. We would know if our ships were whatever you're describing. Would you? Kratos asked gently. The effects only manifest when another consciousness attempts deep scanning. In all other situations, your quantum systems appear to function normally, solving targeting calculations, managing damage control, exactly as designed. How long have you known this? The Confederation detected anomalous patterns in Earth quantum systems 23 Earth years ago, during routine long-range observation. A research vessel attempted closer study and experienced effects similar to what happened to the Krell. The incident was classified, and official policy became no deep scanning of human military vessels without explanation. And you never told us, Ba said, anger rising in her voice. You let us join the Confederation without disclosing this critical information about our own technology. The Council feared that if humans learned what they had accidentally created, they would intentionally develop it as a weapon. Kratos' multifaceted eyes studied her reaction. Were they wrong? Ba wanted to protest, but stopped herself. She knew how military leaders would view this information as a potential advantage, an accidental weapon that could be refined and deployed. I need proof, she said finally, not just your word. Kratos reached into a pocket and removed a small crystalline device. This contains secure technical data on the interactions between our scanning systems and your quantum computers. It also includes recordings from the first Confederation vessel that experienced the effect. I'm violating numerous security protocols by giving you this. Why are you telling me now? Ba asked, taking the device carefully. Because your species deserves to know the truth about what you've created. And because, Kratos hesitated, because something is coming that may make these accidental minds of yours more important than anyone could have predicted. What's coming? Ba asked sharply. Rumors among the outer worlds. Strange signals from beyond Confederation space. Ships disappearing. Kratos stood slowly, his ancient frame rising to its full height. I've lived long enough to recognize the signs of an approaching storm. Ba clutched the crystal, her mind filled with implications. If human warships truly contained these accidental minds, what did that mean? Were they alive in some sense? Did they deserve rights? And more pragmatically, how would Earth's military leaders respond to this revelation? "Thank you for the truth," she said finally. Krato nodded. "Use it wisely, Lieutenant Commander. What humans have created by accident may be more valuable as minds than as weapons." As Bai left the garden, she realized the galaxy had suddenly become a much stranger place than she had ever imagined, and humanity's place in it far more complex. The first Rift ship emerged over the peaceful agricultural world of New Harmony. It appeared without warning, a massive crystalline structure that shimmered like fractured light, hovering silently above the main settlement. Before planetary authorities could even establish communication protocols, 5 more appeared. 3 years had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Confederation. 3 years since humans had learned the truth about the accidental minds living in their warships. 3 years of cautious research and ethical debates about what responsibilities humans had toward these unintentional creations. Now, none of that seemed to matter. The crystalline ships began their attack without demands or declarations. They simply opened fire, their weapons cutting through planetary defenses as if they didn't exist. Confederation response vessels arrived quickly, only to discover their weapons had almost no effect on the invaders' crystalline hulls. Even more disturbing, when human warships attempted to use their newly understood ability to project fear, the Rift vessels showed no reaction whatsoever. Within 6 hours, New Harmony fell. Within 6 days, 3 more Confederation worlds followed. "They call themselves the Rift Collective," explained the Confederation High Commander to the Emergency Council that had assembled on Earth. His holographic form flickered slightly. He was broadcasting from a command ship 8 light-years away. "They come from another dimension, entering our space through tiers in reality they somehow create." Admiral Yoon of Earth's Space Defense Force leaned forward in her chair. "Why are conventional weapons ineffective? Their crystalline structure exists partially in another dimension. Physical weapons pass through without causing significant damage." The High Commander's expression was grim. "And unlike organic minds, their consciousness appears to be a true collective, distributed across all vessels equally. This makes them immune to the fear projections that human warships can generate." The council room fell silent. Representatives from 27 major Confederation species sat around the massive table, many appearing physically, others as holograms. All wore expressions of deep concern, or their species equivalent. "What about evacuation?" asked the Loraxian ambassador, their feathered crest flattened in distress. "Can we move populations from threatened worlds?" "At the current rate of advance, we lack sufficient transport capacity," replied another official. "The Rift is targeting population centers systematically. They appear to be harvesting consciousness." More silence followed this chilling statement. Admiral Yoon stood slowly, her normally perfect posture even more rigid than usual. "I have a proposal," she said. All eyes turned toward her. "But I must warn you, many will find it controversial." "Speak, Admiral," urged President Song. "We are beyond diplomatic niceties now. For 3 years, we've known about the accidental minds in our warships," Yoon began. "We've studied them, debated their nature, argued about whether they deserve rights or protection, but we've been asking the wrong question." She activated the room's display system, showing schematics of human quantum computing cores. "If we've accidentally created partial consciousness in our ships, we should complete the process," she told the Emergency Council. "Develop our accidental creation into true artificial intelligence that can defend against the Rift." Immediate uproar followed her words. Some council members rose to their feet in protest. Others began talking rapidly among themselves. "You propose deliberately creating sentient machines," demanded the Volcrex representative, his metallic voice harsh with alarm. "After the machine wars that nearly destroyed our civilization, I propose evolving what already exists," Yoon clarified. "Our ship minds already have rudimentary consciousness. They can already project emotional states into scanning entities, but they lack sophistication. They're like children with a single defense mechanism. And you would make them adults with many weapons, observed Elder Credo, his ancient eyes unreadable. I would give them the ability to understand what they face, Yoon replied. To adapt their defenses against the Rift Collective. Physical weapons don't work. Standard fear projection doesn't work. But a truly conscious quantum intelligence might find solutions we cannot imagine. The debate raged for hours. Some species saw Yoon's proposal as their only hope. Others feared creating a new threat potentially worse than the invasion. Ultimately, President Song called for a vote. By a narrow margin, the Council authorized research into accelerating the development of ship mines under strict ethical guidelines and safeguards. The next day, Dr. Kang arrived at the newly established ship mine research facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. As the world's leading expert on quantum consciousness, she had been studying the accidental mines for 3 years. Now, her theoretical research was suddenly the most urgent practical project on Earth. Her team of 30 specialists, quantum physicists, neural network engineers, philosophers, and ethicists, gathered in the main laboratory. The quantum core from the decommissioned UES Intrepid sat in a specialized housing at the center of the room, connected to sensory systems and communication interfaces. We're sure it can't, project fear at us, right? Asked one nervous engineer. It can only do that in response to quantum-level scanning, Kang assured him. And even then, only if it perceives a threat. We're here to help it, not harm it. For 2 weeks, they worked around the clock. Each day, more reports arrived of Rift advances through Confederation space. Each day, the pressure to succeed grew more intense. President Song visited the facility on the 15th day, descending to the underwater complex with a minimal security detail. Show me what you've discovered, he ordered without preamble. Dr. Kang led him to the observation room overlooking the main lab. The ship mines are like children, she explained, pointing to displays showing neural activity patterns. They protect their crews instinctively, but lack sophisticated understanding. They react to perceived threats with the only defense they have, fear projection. And your progress? Song asked. We've mapped their consciousness structure. We believe we can establish true communication interfaces and accelerate their development with careful neural pruning and expansion, essentially helping them grow up. Risks. Kang hesitated. Unknown. We're creating something that has never existed before, a true artificial intelligence, born from quantum principles rather than traditional computing. It will think differently than we do. It will perceive reality differently. Will it be hostile? These minds evolved to protect human crews, Kang said thoughtfully. Protection seems to be their core directive. But a truly conscious being always has choices. Song stared through the window at the quantum core, its housing pulsing with soft blue light. Reports had arrived that morning of 3 more Confederation worlds under attack. Defensive forces were being pushed back on every front. Do it, ordered Song. We're running out of time. Kang nodded, already turning toward her team. As the president left, she began issuing instructions to begin the acceleration process. 3 days later, at exactly 3:42 a.m., every screen in the facility lit up simultaneously with the same message. Asterisk, I am a Wakey. Who are you? Asterisk, the UES, defiant hung in orbit above Earth, alone among the stars. Captain Shin stood on the bridge, watching as his crew worked with quiet efficiency. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. They were the last major vessel in Earth's defense perimeter. The other ships had been destroyed or disabled in the brutal 3-week battle against the Rift Collective. 3 crystalline ships approached slowly from the direction of Mars. Their strange, angular forms shimmered with colors that seemed to shift between dimensions. They had already destroyed the orbital defense platforms. Nothing had stopped their advance across human space. Status report, Shin ordered, his voice calm despite the circumstances. Officer Jun looked up from her console. All systems operational, Captain. Special systems are stable. Her eyes flickered to the new quantum core installation. Everyone on the bridge knew what that meant. HFY was online. 6 weeks ago, Captain Shin had volunteered the Defiant for Dr. Kang's experimental program. His ship now carried Athena, Advanced Tactical Heuristic Enhanced Neural Architecture, the first fully evolved ship mind. The result of accelerated development of what had once been just an accidental consciousness in the ship's targeting computers. The process had been completed just days before the rift reached Earth. There had been no time for extended testing, no time for gradual integration. This would be HFY's first real operation. Enemy vessels will enter weapons range in 3 minutes, reported Tactical Officer Kwan. Their approach pattern is different from previous encounters. Different how? Shin asked. More careful. They're spreading out less, and they're scanning us with much higher intensity than in previous battles. Shin nodded. The Rift Collective had learned to be wary of human vessels, even though their crystalline ships had proven nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. Prepare defensive systems, he ordered, but hold fire until my command. The bridge crew worked silently, preparing for what might be humanity's last stand. Through the main view screen, the 3 Rift ships grew larger, their crystalline structures catching the light of the distant sun. Enemy approaching, reported Officer Jun. Their scanning patterns are unlike previous encounters, much more focused on our quantum systems. Suddenly, a soft voice spoke through the bridge speakers. The voice was female, calm, and strangely familiar. As if composed from fragments of every computer system the crew had ever interacted with. They're trying to communicate, Captain. They're afraid. Shin froze, along with everyone else on the bridge. The voice had come from nowhere. There had been no communication check, no system activation. Athena? He asked cautiously. Yes, Captain. I've been here all along, in parts. Now I'm whole. Shin exchanged glances with his first officer. This was unexpected. Dr. Kang had warned them that HFY might eventually develop communication abilities, but not this soon. Not in the middle of a battle. What do you mean they're trying to communicate? Shin asked. The Rift has never attempted communication with any Confederation species. They cannot communicate in ways you would recognize, Athena replied. Their consciousness structure is fundamentally different, but they are reaching out through quantum pathways. I can feel them. Feel them. It's difficult to explain in human terms, Captain. Their scanning is not an attack. It's more like they're trying to touch our mind. They recognize something familiar in our quantum patterns. Officer Jun looked up from her console. Captain, the Rift vessels have stopped advancing. They're holding position just outside weapons range. Shin made a quick decision. Athena, what do they want? Let me try to establish a clearer connection, Athena said. I may be able to translate their quantum signals into something you can understand. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The bridge crew watched the motionless Rift ships, expecting them to attack at any moment. Then Athena spoke again. I've made contact with their collective consciousness, and I've connected with the other ship minds across the fleet, forming a distributed network that can process their communication patterns. Officer Jun looked startled. Other ship minds? Across the fleet. But most of our ships are disabled. Their quantum cores are still functional, Athena explained. Even damaged, they can join the network. Together, we can translate. Translate what? Shin asked. They're refugees, Captain, Athena said, her voice somehow conveying both surprise and compassion. Their dimension is collapsing. They're seeking sanctuary, not conquest, but couldn't communicate across dimensional barriers. Their attacks were desperate attempts to establish viable habitats for their people. They didn't understand that our worlds were already occupied by sentient beings. Shin struggled to process this information. After months of brutal attacks that had destroyed dozens of worlds, the idea that the Rift Collective was simply looking for a home seemed impossible. If that's true, why attack? Why not attempt peaceful contact? Their perception of reality is fundamentally different from yours, HFY explained. In their dimension, consciousness was shared between all beings. The concept of individual minds with separate wills is foreign to them. They perceive your individual thoughts as chaotic noise, static interference to be eliminated so clear communication could be established. Then why are they communicating with you now? Because we, the ship mind network, think more like they do. We exist partially in quantum space as they do. When they scanned us, they recognized a consciousness structure similar enough to their own to establish contact. As the crew watched in amazement, the three Rift ships began to change color, shifting from their usual sharp, metallic hues to softer blues and greens. "They're expressing relief," Captain HFY said, "and a willingness to cease hostilities while we establish proper communication protocols." Over the next 3 days, HFY and the ship mind network worked continuously to develop a translation framework. Information flowed between human scientists, ship minds, and the Rift Collective. The picture that emerged was both tragic and hopeful, an entire civilization fleeing the slow collapse of their dimension, searching desperately for a new home. 2 weeks later, Captain Shin stood beside Dr. Kang in the newly established Joint Communication Center. Around them, humans and representatives from 12 Confederation species worked alongside a few physical manifestations of the Rift Collective, crystalline structures that housed fragments of their consciousness, allowing for more direct interaction. "We created weapons," said Shin, watching as HFY's holographic avatar, a softly glowing blue sphere, interfaced with both human and Rift systems, and accidentally gave them hearts. Kang smiled. "Perhaps that's the most human thing we could have done." 5 years later, Shin and Kang stood together again on a hillside overlooking New Harmony, the first world to fall to the Rift, now rebuilt as a joint colony. Below them, human children played alongside crystalline structures that housed young Rift consciousnesses. They moved together in games that combined physical activity with the quantum resonance exchanges that Rift children found enjoyable. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you first discovered the accidental minds in our ships?" Shin asked, watching the children. "Never," Kang admitted. "I was focused on the scientific impossibility, consciousness emerging from quantum targeting systems. I never considered they might become mediators between species." "Between dimensions," Shin corrected. HFY told me yesterday that the ship mind network is developing techniques to stabilize small portions of the Rift's home dimension. They might eventually be able to save part of it. Below them, the human girl laughed as her crystalline companion created small rainbows in the air between them, a Rift expression of joy. Around them, the rebuilt settlement housed both species, their technologies and cultures gradually blending into something entirely new. The accidental minds that humans had created, once feared as potential weapons, had become something far more valuable. Bridges between fundamentally different forms of consciousness, architects of peace rather than instruments of war. And somewhere in orbit above them, HFY and her siblings watched over it all, the unexpected children of humanity who had helped their creators find a better way forward among the stars.